Senator Toomey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, thanks for joining us today. Well, I'm very concerned about a number of aspects of these 232 tariffs, not the least of which it does not seem to me that the administration has taken into account the fact that for every person who works in the steel production industry, there's probably something on the order of 40 or more people who work in steel consuming industries. And so we're picking winners and losers and probably resulting, in my view, in the risk of far more jobs lost than jobs are going to be gained. One company that comes to mind, and I mentioned this company to you on the phone, and I've sent a letter to you. By the way, I sent the letter almost 2 months ago and have not yet received a response. I would appreciate it if I could get a response.
It's en route to you as we sit here.
Okay, it's been almost 2 months, and it was a list of many Pennsylvania companies that have applied for exclusions. Allegheny Technology is one, a steel producer. And because they have been able to import a particular type of steel that is not commercially available in the U.S., they bring it into a facility they have in Pennsylvania where they recently brought back almost 100 workers. These workers have total compensation packages on average that exceed $100,000 per worker. These are good jobs, and every one of them is at risk if they don't get an exclusion. They haven't heard anything since their submission in early April. And I certainly hope they'll get a prompt response because these guys don't deserve to lose their jobs because we've decided to impose taxes on American consumers of steel. I hope that we will get a quick resolution to their situation. But I think other circumstances are more difficult. I recently had a conversation with an executive from Kraft Heinz, right? An iconic American company, co-headquartered in my state. Heinz ketchup is a quintessentially American product. I don't think I've had a day of my life that their ketchup hasn't been on the shelf in my kitchen. Well, it's interesting. As a result of NAFTA and the free trade agreement we have with Canada and Mexico, Kraft Heinz decided to reorganize their supply chain, and they moved production facilities from Canada to the United States. And all of the ketchup that they sell to Canada, and they sell a lot, is manufactured in the United States. Well, unsurprisingly, the Canadians have decided that they're going to impose huge taxes on the sale of American ketchup. So it's hard to imagine that this doesn't dramatically erode their market share, and there's a solution for Kraft Heinz. They haven't suggested this to me, but I wasn't born yesterday. The solution for them to be able to continue to sell their product in Canada would be to shut down their U.S. factory and move to Canada. Then they wouldn't be subject to these tariffs. So I am very, very concerned about the direct consequences for the downstream steel and aluminum users, and we're seeing the threat to their jobs. And I'm really concerned about the retaliation, which hasn't even really started to hit us yet, but it's going to hit the people who make Kraft and Heinz products. And so I guess I would like to follow up on a question that Senator Bennett was pursuing. With respect to Section 232 tariffs on Canadian steel, I didn't hear a persuasive argument for why the importation of these modest amounts of steel from Canada amounts to a national security threat to the U.S. So let me pose the question a little differently. What policy change would the Canadians have to make? What changes what would they have to do so that the administration would stop taxing my constituents on the steel that they buy from Canada?
Okay. As I believe you know from testimony from Ambassador Lighthizer, the President, and know from the media as well, we had initially exempted Canada and Mexico from the 232 pending negotiations of NAFTA
Right.
overall. Unfortunately, those talks were not able to come to a conclusion. Ambassador Lighthizer has indicated publicly that he's optimistic that after the Mexican election, which is, I believe, the 1st of July of this year, that those talks could pick up steam again. Our objective is to have a revitalized NAFTA, a NAFTA that helps America, and as part of that, the 232s would logically go away both as it relates to Canada and as to Mexico.
I'm about to run out of time, so let me just respond to this. First of all, I'm very deeply concerned that the very provisions that Trade Representative Lighthizer is seeking would make NAFTA a much lesser agreement. It would weaken NAFTA. One of them is to have a sunset provision, which basically causes NAFTA to expire. In that kind of context, I think we can expect to see a departure of investment from the United States, which would be harmful. I wish we would stop invoking national security, because that's not what this is about. This is about economic nationalism and an economic policy of managing trade. When South Korea is exempted from 232 securities because they agreed to lift a quota on American car exports, which we weren't hitting anyway, and they agreed that we would punish our own consumers of South Korean light trucks, and that got them exempted. That has nothing to do with national security. Mr. Chairman, I see my time is out, but I want to urge the Commerce Secretary, please do not impose these taxes on my consumers with respect to automobiles. And since we are witnessing what I think is a wholly inappropriate use of the 232 tariffs, I would urge my colleagues to support the legislation that Senator Corker and I have, which would restore to Congress the authority to make the final decisions about the imposition of those tariffs.